We live in a world full of stories. Most of these are not human stories. They're not human adventures. But when we look around us, there are stories, there are adventures everywhere. I'm Gordon MacLellan, a UK-based artist, poet, and storyteller. And I'm a zoologist and a trained ecologist. So I'm a sort of cheerful mix of science and art. In my public work, I am Creeping Toad. And I find ways of helping people, particularly groups of people, explore and hopefully celebrate their relationships with the world around them. That happens anywhere, everywhere. From city centres and suburbs to small towns, to museums, to nature reserves, to windswept beaches, to rain-swept woodlands. I live in Derbyshire in the middle of England in the UK, and rain is our standard sort of default weather. So we get very used to operating in the damp. But while I work professionally as a creative person, that adds a different dynamic to my understanding of my personal creativity, which is what I'd like to talk about this evening. You know, rather than just talking endlessly about making things with people and having a great time and creating strange celebrations. With the conference, we're trying to encourage people to look at their own processes, to understand what they do and how they do it, and where you can find inspiration, where we can find inspiration, and how we can nurture our own creativity. So as I said, I've got this mix of professional creativity and personal. So a lot of the creativity in my life, a lot of the inspiration in my life seems to work with a set of dynamic contradictions. There's no straight lines. One, I'm a storyteller, and you almost never get a story that goes in a straight line. And I'm an ecologist, so nothing ever happens in a linear fashion. Everything is always conversations. But, right, my dynamic contradictions are: one, I work to help people find their own inspirations, to access their own creativity. And I need to be able to facilitate that process, to provide activities and skills and contexts without controlling it, without letting my creative vision get in the way of other people's. But then I need to find ways of weaving those often completely disparate stories and ideas together to give them a coherent whole so that we can create a community celebration. At the same time, I do need to pay attention to my own creativity, to know that this informs that public work. And I need to remember how important having the freedom to think and make and do, the freedom to pursue my own inspiration. I need to remember how important that is to me. My professional effectiveness lies in having my own independent creative life. But it's very easy to lose that. You know, if I'm being pompous, I'd say it's very easy to surrender my personal needs to the needs of a project. But what it really means is that I'm quite obsessive. And so I get completely swallowed up by projects and by what's happening in them, and come out of it at the end feeling battered and bruised, hopefully triumphant, but at the same time feeling, you could have managed that, your personal time better. But we've got that balance. We've got working outside, working with other people, finding the balance within the relationship between me and other people. And I also recognize that for a lot of what I do, both professionally and personally, the inspiration is external. The inspiration that feeds my personal creative process, that sets a poem or a story or a puppet in motion, comes from outside of myself. I'm not talking about sort of divine intervention here. The external side is the world around me. that external inspiration is my experience of the natural world. That's what inspires me. We'll come back to that shortly. But even this is too simple a model. I mean, for me, creativity is like a series of conversations, or better still, a series of dances. I find creativity in the interactions between different things. With groups, I try not to dictate what will happen or where their ideas will go. I need to recognize the directions they're going in, to open doors, to provide the questions or other stimuli that might propel an idea further. If you like, to start choreographing the steps that they are dancing. Let's give you a little example. Just now, I'm working in a town called Littleborough, which is in the county of Lancashire on the sort of western coast of England. And we're looking in the Littleborough Arts Festival, we're looking at a time, maybe 100 years from now, or 200, or 500, when the ice caps have melted. When the sea has risen and the rising sea flooded the cities of Blackpool and Liverpool, it swamped Manchester, it drove people as refugees into the hills or out on cruise ships looking for somewhere else to live. And then when the water reached Littleborough, the people of Littleborough decided they liked their town too much to leave. And so over the summer, we've been working with anyone who would stop and talk to us to create the future histories of Littleborough. And that's gone from the first coming of the waves, which led to shopping trolley submarines, dinner table rafts with bedsheet sails. We had double-decker buses as boats with oars sticking out the windows. We have people starting to farm seaweed. Time rolls on, things get stranger, and we started finding the stories of the web-footed dogs and the swimming cats. We found that the people of Littleborough have started to change. And apart from having long conversations with jellyfish, which is a theme that has appeared for no apparent connected reason at all, but turns up at least once a week, people have started being able to hold their breath longer underwater. Some people have been growing fins and scaly skin. Other people have been building layers of blubber under themselves and turning into sort of seal people. And it's getting stranger. And looking ahead again, 500 years from now, inevitably, everyone has turned into mermaids. And we have a whole zoology that no one else has ever encountered. We have seal sheep. We have mouse minnows, which I'll come back to. We have strange octopus people who really liked goldfish bowls that they found in people's houses. Other octopus decided they liked saucepans. Others just found anything round was acceptable. And we now have tribes of armored octopus that can patrol well, it's now seabed, but it used to be the streets of Littleborough. And we have the mouse minnows who cause trouble. They are hunted by the catfish. They are chased by the dogfish, but the mouse minnows always get away. And we don't know if it's true, but it seems to be a story that was started by a mouse minnow. And it's one of those things that someone else has seen. Someone else's friend heard. It happened to someone else who someone knew who used to live next door, but now lives in a tent. but we think there is now a Gruffalo fish. And I really hope the Gruffalo stories translate into other parts of the world, because otherwise it's only people in Britain who'll be going, oh yeah, the Gruffalo. If you've never heard of the Gruffalo, I'm not going to apologize for that. Go and look him up. He's wonderful. But be warned, 500 years from now, the mouse minnows tell us there are Gruffalo fish. That's what I do. My job is listening to all that bedlam and trying to weave. I'm not going to say sanity, weave a pattern out of it, a pattern that can be shared, a story that can be told. But that's the public side, that's the professional side. For me, myself, and that's where I hope my experiences might be more relevant to you folks out there. It's the conversation, the dance is between myself and the world around me. And I've been trying to think about what are the steps in that dance? How do I find that personal inspiration? How do I nurture that creativity? And that sort of separated out into a series of steps or processes, don't know what to call them. But one, go for a walk, get outdoors, enjoy, appreciate a moment, just simply get out and go for a walk. If I'm at home, I'm really good at being obsessive, as I've said. I will sit and work on my computer all day and suddenly think, oh, I should have been outside. It's a discipline, it's a determination. I go for a walk. It doesn't need to be somewhere wild and fabulous. It doesn't need to be remote and exotic places. There are stories everywhere. In the stones that houses are made from, in the bricks that houses are made from, and discovering that the bricks in this street came from a different place from the bricks in that street. There's stories in the patterns of streets, in the detail, in the forgotten corners of neglected streets. It's one of those big assumptions about sort of nature-based inspiration, is that it has to be wonderful and romantic and remote and fabulous. And it is wonderful and remote and fabulous, and that's ace. But if you've got an hour and you've just run away from the computer screen, just thought, oh, just go for a walk, for goodness sake. The little town I live in, I can find all the things I've just mentioned. I can go down the alley on the other side of my street. I'm looking out the window as I talk because I'm pointing at the street. And it's a little cobbled street. There's nothing very special, but it's built under a cliff. So there's this wonderful craggy rock face. And there's an ongoing argument about how Roman the street is. Because we know our town was first built in 2000 years ago, more or less, when the Romans invaded Britain. We know that some of the streets lie on top of Roman roads, but there's great arguments as to whether the bits of stone that are appearing through the tarmac at the back of the houses at the back of might actually be Roman flagstones. My friends in the local museum are horrified. They just say, there's no provenance, there's nothing, there's no evidence for this. I'm a storyteller, I just love the story. I just think it's brilliant. You think, it's almost like the Roman ghosts of our town keep surfacing. So it doesn't matter where you live. There's always something to see. There's always a story to find. So go for a walk. Going for a walk, be open to possibilities. I try not to go for a walk, deciding in advance what I'm going to find. I just go with a sense of, oh, what's today going to bring? And then to accept the unexpected, which might be having a discussion with somebody in a back street about whether that's a bit of Roman stone sticking out of the wall or not. I've got no idea. I couldn't tell a bit of Roman stone from a bit of any other stone, but I'll join in anything. So go for a walk, be open to possibilities, but then simply find somewhere to be still. I'm a storyteller. If you haven't worked out already, we like to talk. Quite hard to get us to stop talking as storytellers. So for me, a lot of my personal inspiration and creativity comes from just stopping, being open to possibilities, not deciding what something should be, not deciding that I reckon I know what will happen, what story a moment's going to give me, what story a place is going to tell, not to decide what I want it to be, but simply to wait and see, to trust the world around me. I mean, if this was you need to find out what works for you. I mean, for me, it's definitely stopping. I need to just sit down and switch off. I mean, other people talk to me about the value of walking and that movement allows them to walk through their issues or into their own ideas. For me, I simply need to stop and to shut up and not talk to anyone. So I embrace silence when I can. So again, still being open to possibilities, letting a moment speak. It then becomes, I take the opportunity to go deeper, to relax even more. I meditate, I let go and let a place fill me. There's an improvisation activity used in some dance where you see yourself as a hollow glass shape and you let whatever place you're in, let the place around you fill that shape and then make it move. Sometimes you will be filled by a breath of air and you will let the air blow your limbs into the shapes of a dance. Sometimes you will be filled by the rustling of leaves and by the way the light falls through the leaves and touches the ground, and that is what moves you. For me, sitting somewhere, trying to be quiet, trying to relax, that's what I reach for. That's what I'm looking for. That moment when I just let a place fill me. I might still, the creative side, I still haven't pinned down a story as such, but I'm just trusting myself. Not my overactive head, but just trusting my heart. And then listening to the world around me. Listening or feeling. I'm feeling whatever is happening. I mean, it's not usually going to be some linear once upon a time there was a bumblebee. The inspiration I take away from a moment might be a color or a movement or a pattern. It might be an emotion or a moment caught in a phrase. Again, I don't know what country we've got or what countries are represented in the line of people at the top there. But for me, let's say in the last month, the phrases that have hung on with me, that have just been one of those things that have come out, well, the screaming of a flock of swifts, heralding the height of summer and the end of a summer day as they go racing round the houses, is unparalleled. It fills me. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it fills me. I go home and I'm still hearing it and I'm still feeling it and I'm still feeling that freedom and movement and speed that just races round houses, up and down streets, and is just the sound of wild joy. You think, oh, yes. The other one is watching an unkindness of ravens playing in the wind along a ridge. Great big black birds that still treat themselves like leaves. And they're blown by the wind and they're blown by their wings and they become a dance and a poem. They become a story of new families, all on their own. I try not to expect that. But those are the sort of things that the world around me gives me as my inspiration. And I let myself receive whatever the world offers. We come back to not deciding in advance what nature inspiration you're going to get today. You know, I don't go out saying, today I'm going to write a new story about a mouse, and then ignore some huge and magnificent thing that just wanders past because it wasn't a mouse. That sounds ridiculous, but I do meet it sometimes. I do. People are very determined and very focused, and I think, no, receive what the world gives me. And I try and acknowledge that. And if I can, I leave a gift. Or if I'm writing a poem or writing a story, I then go back and tell the story to the place that taught it to me or that started it for me. Other people do other things, but that's what I do. So that's all going on. And then I just say, be gentle with myself. I forgive myself. I forgive myself when things don't get done. I try not to give myself a hard time. I do accept a need for discipline, that if I want to see something happen, if I want to see an inspiration follow through, I'll have to do it. I can't sit here with a brilliant idea and hope someone else will deliver it telepathically. And also, acting upon any inspiration is valuable. That creative process, that anchoring an idea in a deed, in a dance, in a story, in a poem, that carries its own reward. It carries its own richness. I take an idea and try and make it real, even if it changes, even if in the end it doesn't work out. And I'm left looking at something thinking, oh, ugh. Well, we'll just sort of hide that sort of under something and not think about it. The process, the exercise is valuable. It's that sort of keep exercising my imagination, keep exercising my creativity. It's not going to go stale, but the more I exercise it, if you like, the better those creative muscles become. But again, I recognize a need to organize. I recognize my need to try and organize things. So I have to be gentle and not get uptight when you can't, let's face it, you can't really organize nature. You know, it's like standing there in front of an ant's nest and telling them what to do. They know what they're doing. They're better at being ants than anything else is. And I haven't a clue. And I'll still try and organize things. So just be gentle, be kind, be still. Those are my sort of inspirational disciplines. Listen to the world around me, let it tell me its own stories. And I am a storyteller. And so I thought we should finish with a snippet of a story. In the mythologies of Northern Europe, in the Viking myths, we meet all these phenomenal races of beings. There are the Aesir, the gods, and the Vanir, other gods. We have the giants, we have the trolls, we have the dwarfs. There is an argument that says, in the earliest of those myths, all those beings aren't seen as different species. They're very clearly different tribes of greater than human beings. The giants they were the Etins, and they might, as their stories developed, they turned into giants. But originally, they were just the people that lived over there, and they were called giants. And the people over there were called Vanir, and they're a bit odd, and they're a bit violent, but we're the Aesir, and we're wonderful. There is that sort of dynamic. And within all that, in the stories that we meet the trolls. And we're not talking about some 21st century rabid idiot on social media somewhere. Trolls are big and dangerous. But there is an argument, and I have no idea if the etymology that is being used holds up here. But I love the idea that originally the trolls weren't a separate tribe like the giants and the dwarves and the Aesir and the Vanir. A troll, to be a troll, was to be in a state of enchantment. And that anyone or anything could be a troll, probably not permanently, but you might just be, it's almost, you can feel it coming, you almost be enthralled or enthralled. You are held. And the argument is that thrall, that word meaning to be held in, to be controlled and to be owned and to be held by something, and troll come from the same root. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if the etymology works, but I like the idea. And to be enthralled was to be in a state of enchantment. And I love that. I love the thought of that, because for me, it says that sitting in a wood, being still, letting the wood stories move into me and out of me, move through me as words and stories, or just patterns, or as nothing at all but feelings. For me, that's about becoming my own troll. So can I just finish then with a little troll snippet? I do all sorts of things for all sorts of people. And this is an extract from a series of films we made for Buxton Museum and Art Gallery last summer about the process, the experience of being locked down. And you know, other places, other countries all have different systems in lockdown, but we were meant to go out for an hour a day to take exercise. And one of the things that came out of it for me was a whole little set of poems about becoming your own troll. You can find them if you want. I'll put it on the chat. On the chat, my links are on the chat for my social media and things like that. The Earth Trolls will be in my blog if you want to see the rest of this and see the film that went with it. But just now, just stop. Stop talking and listen. Stop listening and watch. Stop watching and feel. Stone is good. The curve of a rock face, the fern in the fold, the lichen on the edge, the moss. Detail. Don't think. Just look. Don't look. Just feel. Don't feel. Just be. Touch it. Lean on it. Lie down on it. Be warmed by it. Just be beside it until everything else just stops. Become your own troll. Thank you. I'm going to stop there.
Thank you so much, Gordon. If anybody has any questions, comments, we do still have about 10-15 minutes left. I can unmute you guys if you'd like, or you can put it in the chat. Either way, we would love to have a discussion. All right, you should be able to unmute yourselves now.
And then there was silence.
Yeah. or if anybody would like to share any of their experiences
Yeah.
as well.
Just thank you, Gordon. Nice to see you again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, that was very inspiring. I love your stories, always have done. So thank you very much for sharing them and for other people as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Sue.
Okay.
How about, does anyone else have their own process? You know, what do you do if you want to draw inspiration from nature? Where do you go and what do you do? Would you like, if you'd like to share that with us?
I go to the woods.
Mm-hmm. Any woods in particular, or just any ones you can get to?
Any woods, but actually I'm very lucky because where I live, it's a shared 2-acre garden, and there are woods in the garden, so that's really good. But a short drive away, there's a bigger wood, and I just love the feeling of being surrounded by the green. I sort of write songs and poems, and quite often they'll come there, but they could come anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, but I do feel inspired by nature, so I could relate to a lot of what you said. And like you say about just stopping and being, that's really important, because I found that for a while that I was suppressing the creative side. Sometimes a little thing would bubble up and I'd be like, no, that's not very good, and I wouldn't do anything with it. And in the end, I made a pact with myself that I was always going to honor that creative side and allow it to speak. And then if I have written something, to put it out there into the world, and it doesn't matter if other people don't like it. It wants to be heard. It's almost like it has a life of its own. Once I've written something, it's not mine, it comes through me, and some people will like it and some people won't. But yeah, it's something really lovely and alive about creativity.
Yeah, and I think your point about it's very easy to sort of to dismiss it or suppress it is, I think that happens to so many of us, and it's important, as you said, just to not do that. Just, yeah, even if it's just 2 lines of a song and that's it, never goes any further, to do that little bit, yeah, to let it out and see what happens.
It's quite scary and vulnerable though, to express yourself in a way, you know, that's often can be ridiculed, or you feel like you could be ridiculed, or you may have been. I had been. Yeah, people find that embarrassing. But, you know, it's got better since I stopped worrying about what other people think.
Yes. Yeah.
If I could just say, I joined your talk just a little bit late, but I caught the ending, and I just, you know, what you were talking about, it's this idea of being present, which is so crucial. And the last attendee was just talking, I was listening to her talk. You know, so often when we're making something, usually there's one of 2 thoughts we're having. Either this is horrible and no, what right do I have to do this? Or sometimes I think we think, this is amazing and nobody has ever thought of this before. And I think that fundamentally both of those thoughts are distractions from the actual work, from the actual activity of being engaged with what it is you are feeling or thinking or doing at the moment. And so that ability to be present with what the work requires of you at that moment, and not be thinking and not judging and not determining outcomes, is so crucial.
Yes, I agree completely. I don't know who that was that was speaking.
My name is Richard.
Oh, right. Oh, yep. I found you down there. Nothing was flagging up that was saying it was you speaking. So thank you, Richard. That was very, oh, there you are. Yeah, I think that's very true. That's great. Thank you.
Also, Mandeep in the comments said, nature has been a great comfort, especially during this pandemic time. Stress of pandemic has been overwhelming, and for a time it suppressed my creative juices. However, my creative juices, thank God, have started flowing again, perhaps because there's light at the end of the tunnel, rather distant because of variance. I definitely relate to that. Any thoughts on that, Gordon?
I mean, I think for us, the how we've managed how we've managed our experience through the pandemic has caused, as Mandeep says, so much stress for people. I mean, I know that for me, that regular escape, that real discipline is just walk away from everything, just go and sit down. I haven't had to self-isolate, and I have other friends who have, and for them, I think it has been much more traumatic, because it's that almost fear of any contact with anyone sort of outside of a personal bubble. But even there, it's that getting that experience of nature, that chance to stop, and as Richard was saying, that just to be present is really important. And as again Mandy said that he sort of felt he'd lost his creativity, and now they've started flowing again, and that happens too, particularly if you're upset or worried. I mean, I know for me, a lot of my personal, if I'm tense, or if I'm emotionally distressed for whatever reason, it generally turns into creating something, because I think that's my basic expression, and other people express themselves in other ways. But I think for me, it's that connection to nature has been one of the things that's kept me going through all of this, and still keeps me going now.
Wonderful. Also, Helen said she can unmute herself, but she's wondering, are there trolls in towns too? If so, how have they adapted?
Sorry, I'm going to read. I can't unmute. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing it. Yeah. Oh yeah, I think right. I think I'm going to separate things out of it. You could be your own troll anywhere. I do that same sort of process, sitting on park benches, and I haven't been arrested yet, which I feel is quite an achievement. I have had various people come up to say, "Are you all right? You've been sitting here very quiet for a long time," and I'm quite happy with that. But I love it's one of the few times when I do walk rather than just sit, and that's just walking round back streets in particular, as long as you're safe, but it's that just looking at and seeing the wonders that are built into things, the unexpected corners, that inspiration of unexpected encounters is always there. Jumping sort of sideways right into sort of more deeply into folklore, I tell troll stories that are anchored in towns just as much as I tell troll stories that are anchored in trolls of wild places. For me, trolls, the folklore trolls are the shapes of the earth-given shape. They're different from the elves, the dwarves, the fairies, and all the others. For me, trolls are much bigger, lumpier, chunkier. I have a very good relationship with trolls. And yes, I meet them in streets, but then I also meet the fairies who make themselves dresses out of abandoned crisp packets. And the ones that turn the shopping trolleys. I keep saying shopping trolleys. I hope that's the same thing in the States. Do you call them the same things? Are they shopping carts there?
No, yeah, shopping cart.
Yeah, those big mesh box things. But in Britain, they always land up in bodies of water anywhere. They migrate to the water. But there's a whole set of stories about the fairies who make dresses out of crisp packets and turn shopping carts into castles. So I meet trolls in towns, and I meet just about anything else in town as well. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any more questions or comments at all? Or anything you'd like to say to end your presentation, Gordon?
I'd just like to say, I'd like to say, you've got my contact details. I'm always open to conversations with anyone about, not about anything, that's just asking for trouble, but I'm always open for conversations. I manage various different projects, and if you're producing things, if you're writing or doing drawings, particular ones about your relationship with nature, and you want somewhere to share them, it's always worth dropping me a line, because there might well be a space. There might well be something opened up that's just looking for, whatever. I mean, I've just finished a whole project called Toad Words, where we've been collecting people's poems about amphibians. And that's a lovely set that we're going to do something with at some point. And just now I'm working on a project with trees, and in particular ash dieback, which is hitting Europe and the UK really hard. I don't know if it's reached, I hope it hasn't reached the States, but where ash trees are getting fungal infections and slowly dying. And we've been creating poems, we created a set of giant puppets that can dance through our woods, that are the embodiment of the relationship between people and trees, that grew out of lockdown, and how people realized how much they value trees. So anything like that, yeah, I'm always open to either, you know, to using it if I can in something I'm doing, giving you hopefully constructive advice. I'm not going to guarantee it will be, but just to be, I'll be there as ears to listen or fingers to share on a keyboard. Thank you, Natalie. Back to you.